Okay.
So first game of the round, Brisbane versus St Kilda, 13th versus 14th. It's a Friday night game at the Gabba. So you're probably not going to even watch this game, right?
I reckon I will, because there's no Thursday night football, so I've got to watch something on the Friday.
And there's only 6 games too, right? You're going to need to get your fill of football. So in the game, St Kilda against the Suns, there was a controversial decision against Max Andrew. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts on that?
Disgraceful decision.
Yeah, right?
Appalling. Like, if they pay that at crucial times of the game, they'd be paying 200 free kicks a game, I reckon.
Yeah, it was insane. And then they came out, apparently, they gave an apology. What are we supposed to do with that? Like,
exactly.
Okay.
What's an apology do? Do we change the result? No. So what's the apology? It's like, again, make umpires full-time.
We'll get into it probably, but there were a lot of these questionable decisions. So the Lions had a convincing win against the Bulldogs. St Kilda beat the Suns, maybe a little less convincingly. Who loses and why?
St Kilda, because Ross Lyon is their coach. End of story.
For Ross. Okay, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a St Kilda loss. I think that Brisbane will get at least 6 goals on them. Charlie Cameron's due for a bag. What do you think about that?
He is, actually. He's had a very quiet season, hasn't he?
He has.
There's been some speculation he might look for a new home next year.
Wow, really? Where will he go?
Hey, maybe one of the Perth sides.
That would be kind of exciting.
Excited?
Yeah, I actually like him. I think he's exciting.
There's 2, so
usually.
Fremantle can be a destination. They're not really.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't mind that, but I'd like better players at the Eagles. Okay, let's move along to the next game: Western Bulldogs against the Dockers. 11th versus 6th, Saturday morning at the Marvel Stadium. Freo play really well at Marvel. In fact, they play pretty well in Melbourne in general. So did you watch the Bulldogs game?
I saw the highlights. I saw the mini. I did hear the Bulldogs CEO say that they were a little tired. This was before the game. Oh. So I thought, geez, that's interesting. So, and look, I never like to use those excuses, but when other teams have buys, and a bit of a rest in this game always helps. So, if it's fair, it's fair. If everyone's got the same amount of buys, I'll cop that. But the Bulldogs looked tired from what I could see. So I think he was on the money with that comment.
All right, who loses and why?
Do you want my head or heart tip?
Well, both. Give me both.
Okay, because I've got a running bet on our channel that if Fremantle play finals, I eat 100 nuggets.
That's
in 30
right.
minutes. We established last night in our live stream that it's 30 minutes.
100 nuggets, 30 minutes. Okay, that's a new element to this bet. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We established it in the chat last night. Everyone said 100 minutes. I said 100 minutes.
Wait, where was the 200 nuggets? Wasn't there wasn't somebody double the nugget count?
That was you trying to rein me into 200 nuggets. I'm not doing 200.
Oops.
So it was 100 for St Kilda to make finals, which isn't going to happen, and 100 for Fremantle to make finals. So that's where the 200.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Now, this is hard for me to say, but I think the Western Bulldogs lose just because of the tide factor. I don't know. I know it's going to make me eat 100 nuggets.
But wait, is that the heart or is that the head?
Both. It's killing me to say that.
I agree with you. The Bulldogs are going down. Should Rory Lobb stay or go?
He should wave like the Queen.
All right. So, yes, the Bulldogs are still, as far as I know, they're going to still, Naughton's going to still be out. Waitman's going to be out. Jamara can't kick straight. So, and Bont, you know what? Bont can't do everything. So, Bulldogs lose.
But he can't. Yep.
He certainly does. He's fantastic. Okay. Next game, Richmond versus Hawks, 7th versus 12th. It's a Saturday game at the MCG. Hawks had a good weekend against GWS, didn't they?
Loved it. I loved it. Yep.
Yeah, and they're the informed team at the moment. Wouldn't you agree?
They are. Yes.
Yeah. Richmond, however, threw a little monkey wrench in everyone's plans this week. I'm sure there are a lot of upset betting people going on this week. So they beat Adelaide in Adelaide with half their team out. Remember that, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
although they did get Shai Bolton back, which was pretty cool. And this week, it's Dusty's 300th game. So he's magically better from whatever illness was affecting him last week to not play his 300th in Adelaide. So he's better, I hear. Sources tell me. If you had to put a percentage on how much they will lift for Dusty, what's that look like?
600%.
600.
Yep.
Jeez.
This is part of their DNA, Richmond. This is how they won those premierships.
Okay.
They get up for big games, and this is the biggest game they've played since their 2020 premiership.
So I'm going to ask you this question then.
Yep, go for it.
Because I'm very curious now. I thought I knew what you were going to say, but who loses and why?
The Hawks lose. It's very, very simple. It's very simple. There is nothing... Everyone out in YouTube world, there is nothing more certain than Richmond winning this game this week. You've got to understand, this guy's, in my mind, the greatest player that's ever played the game in the history of the game since I've been watching it. And as a Richmond supporter, he's got to be your favourite player of all time, right? The best player of all time because he plays for Richmond. So to watch him play his 300 game is just something special.
So what are the chances of Dusty walking off and retiring after this game?
There's been rumours he might. Personally, I think there's no chance. He's not that type of person. He might do it the next day.
The next day, but not the
Yeah, because, so that he doesn't have to get interviewed on the ground or anything. But straight after the game, not going to happen.
Is he going to the Suns?
I reckon he's a pretty loyal guy.
Yeah.
Like, I think he either plays for Richmond or retires. I don't think... it's fanciful that he goes up with Damien Hardwick and reunites, but...
Would you think less of him if he did?
No, not really.
No?
He's given Richmond so much, so that's fine.
Well, I think the Hawks are going to beat Richmond. So Richmond loses, and even though it's the 300th, I just think the Hawks are red hot. I think they're hard to beat. I mean, look, magical things do happen. I mean, we saw a couple of them this past weekend. But I'm going with the Hawks for the win and Richmond to lose.
Okay.
Moving right along. Adelaide versus Sydney, 15th versus 1st. It's a Saturday night game. It's back at Adelaide Oval. Looked like the Swans were going to lose last night, didn't it?
I was hoping. I was hoping they'd lose.
We had a few texts going back and forth about that, didn't we?
Yeah. I actually missed the first quarter, and you said check the score, and I'm like,
couldn't believe it.
I was prepared for the other way around. It Swans to be 6 goals up, and I saw that, and I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, but they certainly came back with a vengeance, didn't they?
Oh, they've got a knack. They've done it a few times this year, Sydney. They did it against Carlton. They were 5 goals down, came and smashed them.
It is a home game for the Crows, but they were just beaten by the Tigers, as we just discussed. And how much do you think a loss like that affects the Crows?
Oh, massive. At this time of the season, when they've signed the coach at the start of the year for an extra 2 years on his contract, pressure's on. They missed the finals by an anomaly last year. So, to have all that expectation and do what they're doing, like they've only won 4 games out of 13, that's pretty bad. So the pressure is on.
Do you think Nix is in trouble?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep. Even though he signed an extension, I mean,
contracts be damned. They can get rid of people, right?
You can just rip them up.
Yeah. So there's rumors going around. My sources tell me that there are rumors that Adelaide is a boys' club. Have you heard of this?
I've heard it in the past, and Mark Rasciuto, who's an Adelaide legend, he's a board member. He pretty much runs the football side of it.
Okay.
And he was a boys sort of guy, so it makes some sense. And again, it's the same old story. When teams are losing, everyone looks into everything. When you're winning, it masks everything. You win, it masks everything. So there's a good chance, that could be correct.
Here's the magical question. Who loses and why?
Adelaide loses. They're hopeless. They're hopeless. They're absolutely hopeless. I don't know any nice... I had high expectations for Adelaide this year and what I've seen.
Yeah, me too.
It's just... They're actually hopeless. Like, I don't know another team who can lose games the way they lose games, if that makes sense.
So what you're saying, they're number one at losing.
They're the best at losing winnable games. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah.
I mean, eventually Sydney's going to lose a game. I mean,
100%.
Eventually, but it's not going to be against Adelaide.
No, exactly.
No way.
This week.
No way. So does Matty Nix survive this game if it's a complete shellacking?
Yes, but it might not go on for much longer because they had the camera on him when the siren went the other night, and he just had this look on his face of resignation. He just thought, "Oh, I'm in trouble." Like you could just see it on his face. So
yeah.
I think
I've seen that look a lot from Adam Simpson all of last year. This year is a little lighter, but last year was
exactly.
God.
Yeah.
How often in the history of the game have they sacked a coach mid-season?
It doesn't happen a lot, but funnily enough, that's the best time to do it because you sort of prepare for next year.
Yeah.
So you've got the incumbent coming in, say, in 2025, right? So if you sack the guy halfway through, he's got time to look at the list, make some decisions about, the list, what we need, where we're going, that sort of stuff.
Time
so it's
before,
probably the best time to do it.
Next we have is North Melbourne versus Collingwood. So at the moment, North Melbourne is 18th and Collingwood is 9th. If the Pies win, they could be 5th or 6th, depending on percentage. It's a Sunday morning game at Marvel, if I did my time zone math correctly. Mm-hmm. North finally won one. They beat my Eagles,
they did.
Man. They beat the Eagles.
I told the world, no one wanted to hear it. But
no one wanted to hear that nonsense. Yes, you were, I think, the only person on the planet that knew. Maybe Monica knew, I'm not sure. But how did you know that North was going to beat the Eagles?
Well, it's a simple equation. Harley Reid out equals West Coast no good. That's it.
I think
he
that's
won three. He's won 3 games for him, right? So
no, it's not just about him. But
was I right?
They were
I was right, wasn't I?
But if they had kicked straight, they may have had a different outcome because it was atrocious.
Kicking straight.
Yeah,
bad kicking's bad footy.
Okay, but they did come back. And then another of the weekend's giant, I didn't mean to say giant, but I guess that's a slip of the
Freudian slip.
Another huge controversial call was what happened with Elliot Yeo. I can't even say his name. Elliot Yeo.
I was fine with that. I thought it was okay. I actually said to my ankle sore colleague, I said, I hope North kick another goal so it doesn't become too controversial.
Yeah.
So they win by a couple of goals, so it's not really a talking point.
Yeah.
And they did, so that was good.
Anyway, what were we talking about? Where were we? Okay. So, all right.
You put your Eagles hat on there, that's where we were.
I know. I got lost. Okay, so just to be clear, you categorically state on the record that Elliot Yeo was holding the ball.
Yes.
So Collingwood still has a lot of players out, and they may or may not have lost to Melbourne by the time this airs. Who loses and why?
It's actually a tough one. It is
a tough one.
I think North lose. Coming back from Perth, the young side, they would have been so excited winning that first game, but reality is going to hit them this week playing the current premiers, I think North lose just because of that. They'll just be overawed by the occasion. They'll have a decent performance, but I think they ultimately lose.
I agree. I'm very happy for them that they won a game. I always like to see
Me too.
people have little victories. But yeah, they're not beating Collingwood. It must be really exciting to see Sheasel getting midfield minutes.
He's a maestro. He's for me, he's going to be one of the best players in the AFL next year.
He's really good.
He just sets up the game. He's a genius of a footballer.
It should be really exciting this week to see Cheezel versus Dacos.
Cheezel.
Oh,
Cheezels are the chips. There's an outtake.
Oh, no. All right, so since there's only 6 games, the last game of this round is the Giants versus Port Adelaide. 7th versus 4th. Yeah, 7th versus 4th. Sunday night at Giant Stadium. So before we get into this one, how about the free kick against Tom Green?
What about it? It was after he kicked the ball and then he bowled him over.
Only in slow motion was it after the fact. I mean, come on.
Well, maybe the umpire's got slow motion vision, but it was a free kick.
Was it soft?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
But look, either way, if he paid it or didn't pay it, I would have been okay with it because I can see why they paid it.
Yeah.
And I would have been okay with them not paying it. So it was a little bit soft, but it was there.
So if that happened in a grand final and decided the outcome of that game, you'd be okay with that?
I'd get the chisel and start knocking down the MCG, and it wouldn't even be my team playing.
Carlton's if it was in the grand final, and there's a hit, and then it
would be the AFL they wouldn't afford that. They wouldn't let that happen. They couldn't.
Flag on Street would be on fire. Burning down, they'd burn down the city. All right. Well, so I have to say, I think I said last week that I've actually been enjoying Ginnivan playing this season as a Hawk.
He's been good. He's been really good.
However, hold that thought. Mm-hmm. I thought he had stopped with the ducking, and then he just brought it out. And then him and his boy, Jai Newcomb, they just decided to put on a whole show of ducking and staging. Mm-hmm. And now I'm not so happy with little Ginnivan anymore, or little Newcomb. You guys, you have the Logies, right? I think they were both going up, for best performance in a football game.
Yeah, Ginnivan. John Newcomb does it a little bit, but Ginnivan, he bases his game around it. He does it on purpose.
God, it was so disappointing. So this week, it's a home game for the Giants. The Giants are still missing Canelio, Kelly, Buckley. Those are three pretty... Ash is still out. Those are three pretty big outs. Callum Brown came back, but he was ineffective.
Didn't fire a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, a little rusty after 3 weeks in Bali.
Or Ireland.
Port has been underperforming. And even though it looked like at first the holes in the back line were kind of getting filled, it doesn't seem to be the case. Butters, I believe, might be back.
Rosie
may be back. That's right. I get those two. They're interchangeable. Rosie, Butters.
We call them Bosie and Brothers.
Roasters. So, can we have a name for them, like Benifer or Brosie? Okay, that's what you say? I like Brosie. Who loses and why?
It's funny you said Port Adelaide was struggling a bit. What about what about the GWS Giants? They're struggling a little bit. Oh, for
sure. No, they're like you said, the Eagles lost because Harley Reid was out. It puts a little bit of a spotlight on the fact that Canelio and Kelly are out in the midfield.
Absolutely.
I think that's... And even though their back line is still excellent, Buckley is pretty amazing. And with Buckley playing back there with Sam Taylor and Iden and all those guys, I think it takes it to the next level. So, but not to blame injuries, because they do have a deep bench. They still are fairly young as a team, but they're having a hard time. So I mean, all things even, Port Adelaide's struggling a little bit. GWS is struggling. I mean, they're both still in the top 8. It's an important game. The Giants have not played at home very often. I think they've only had one game at home this whole season. Oh, maybe they had 3. So who loses and why?
I think Port lose because the Giants they'll love playing at home this week. They need to play at home and get back on board. Now let me ask you a quick question. How's Toby Green going?
I think Toby Green is doing just fine. I mean, he got his head bashed in on
just fine
Saturday. Well, okay, he had a slow start, and then the last two games before this past weekend, he was actually playing really well. His stats are actually very high in terms of what he needs to be doing. The only place he's super, he's falling down on the scoreboard, but he's not actually playing shitty football. He's just not dazzling everybody right now with his superstar.
That's an interesting take, because years back, or not even years back, but last year before, anytime they needed something, he would step up and do something. But it's just like he's not lost interest. I mean, that's the only thing that sort of comes to mind. But I know it's not that, but it just looks like he's struggling. It's all too hard for him. It looks like at times.
I've said this before. I've said this to you. I definitely think the fatherhood thing plays into the first time father thing plays into these guys' games. I definitely think it shifts perspective, possibly a little bit, maybe subconsciously.
I agree.
But
how about How about we just do a show on who's a new father, and then we can pick our tips that way.
I mean, there's a lot of them.
That might work, right?
Cornelio, there's Toby, there's Nick Hayes. I mean, on the Giants alone, there's like is it 3 or 4 of them? I can't remember.
So then the Giants are stuffed this year. Forget about the Giants.
Right?
They're not playing finals, yeah.
All right. So, I agree. Port Adelaide lose. Because Dixon looks cooked. Todd Marshall, inconsistent. The holes, like I said, in the backfield. The midfield,
struggling a little bit, isn't it?
I think it's going to be a happy day for the Orange fans, and a sad day. A sad day for my friend Clive. Sorry, Clive.
Oh, poor Clive.
All right.
You know what they also miss, just before we end? Sam Powell-Pepper. That's a huge loss.
Yeah. He's a
huge loss. Last year I called him the igniter for Port, because every time they, I just mentioned Toby Green not being there when they needed him. He was always there, a tackle or a goal or a big hit or something like that.
He's an exciting player,
He is, and
he brings
him not
a lot of
being
energy.
There hurts him. Yeah, he does.
All right, well, there you have it. Our tips for round 14. Thank you so much for coming, Andy, and hope to see you again soon.
See you soon.